My name is Jennifer and I'm a 19-year-old student at the prestigious Rhode Island School of Design, RISD, majoring in interior architecture. I've always been the kind of girl who stands out in a crowd, not just for my academic achievements but for my appearance as well. I'm blonde, the kind of golden that seems to catch the light no matter where I am. Standing at 5'7", I keep myself in impeccable shape, with a fitness routine that has sculpted my body into what I proudly call fit. My measurements? Well, let's just say I'm blessed with curves that turn heads, a 34C bust, a waist that cinches in just right, and hips that balance it all out. My school uniform consists of a crisp, white blouse, a navy blue skirt that ends just above the knee, and a blazer with the school's emblem. But at home, I prefer to be barefoot. I hate socks with a passion. My feet, a size 6.5 in American terms, always have some sort of nail polish on them. White is my favorite. It gives me a clean, fresh look that I adore. At RISD, my days are filled with lectures on the history of design, studio time where I sketch out innovative interior spaces, and workshops where I get my hands dirty with materials. I'm known for my creativity, often pushing the boundaries of traditional interior design with modern, sustainable concepts. People often say I'm a natural, with an eye for detail that's beyond my years. I usually start my day with a quick yoga session in my dorm room, donning my favorite matching set of pale blue lingerie, because even under my uniform, I like to feel good about myself. Today, I've chosen a lacy bra and matching panties. The comfort and the confidence they give me are unparalleled. However, not everything in my life is as smooth as my school projects. My home life has been tumultuous, especially since my mom married Steve, my stepdad, a few years ago. Steve is complicated. He's always been around, but there's this unspoken tension, a sort of energy that's hard to ignore. Today, after a long day at school, I walked into the house to find my mother and Steve in the middle of a heated argument. "Mom, what's going on?" I asked, dropping my backpack by the door. "It's nothing, Jennifer, just go to your room," my mom snapped, her voice sharp with anger. But I couldn't just walk away. "No, tell me what's happening. You can't keep fighting like this," Steve interjected, his voice calm but firm. "It's about money again, Jennifer. Your mother thinks I'm not contributing enough." The tension escalated quickly. My mom, in frustration, threw her hands up. "I'm done with this, Steve. I'm leaving." She grabbed her coat and stormed out, leaving Steve and me in an eerie silence. The door slammed, echoing through the house, leaving me alone with Steve. The air was thick with the aftermath of the argument, and I could feel the weight of our new, uncomfortable reality settling in. After the chaotic argument, I needed to clear my head. I decided to hit the gym, hoping the physical exertion would help me forget the tension at home. However, my plan backfired when, during a particularly intense session on the treadmill, I felt a sharp pain in my ankle. I stumbled, barely managing to catch myself before I fell completely. Limping back to the locker room, I realized I'd twisted my ankle pretty badly. The pain was sharp, and I knew I wouldn't be running or even walking comfortably for a while. I managed to get back home, every step a reminder of my clumsiness. When I entered the house, the silence was almost palpable. Steve was in the living room, reading, trying to act as if everything was normal. "Hey, Steve," I called out, more out of necessity than any desire for conversation. "I think I hurt my ankle at the gym." He looked up from his book, concern crossing his face. "Are you okay? What happened?" "I was running and I just twisted it. It hurts a lot," I admitted, hobbling towards the couch. Steve stood up, setting his book aside. "Let me have a look." He guided me to sit down, gently removing my shoe to inspect my ankle. His touch was careful, but I could feel the awkwardness of the situation. My feet, always painted with my favorite white polish, were now the center of attention. "It's swelling," he observed, his fingers gently probing around the injury. "Maybe a cold compress would help, but first, how about a massage to help with the pain?" I nodded, appreciating the gesture despite the underlying tension between us. "That would be nice, thanks." Steve's hands were surprisingly gentle as they worked on my ankle, the warmth of his touch contrasting with the cold air on my bare feet. I couldn't help but be aware of how personal this moment was, how it felt like crossing into new, uncharted territory. As he massaged, we talked about less contentious topics. My day at school, the projects I was working on, anything to keep the conversation away from the earlier argument. Yet, with each stroke of his hands, I felt the boundaries blurring, creating a strange mix of comfort and discomfort. The massage helped with the pain, but as he finished, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something had shifted in our dynamic, something subtle yet significant. After the incident with my ankle, things at home had become a bit less tense, or at least, we were all trying harder to maintain some semblance of normalcy. My ankle had started to heal, but the memory of that day lingered, as did the new routine that had inadvertently formed. A few days later, I found myself sitting on the couch, my books spread out for an evening of study. My ankle was still a bit tender, and I couldn't help but notice the slight swelling that remained. I glanced over at Steve, who was quietly reading in his usual spot. Taking a deep breath, I knew I had to bring it up, despite the awkwardness. "Steve," I started, my voice slightly wavering. My ankle still needs some attention. Maybe you could do that massage again? It really helped last time." There was a brief pause, his eyes lifting from the book to meet mine. I could see the hesitation in his look, the awareness that this was becoming more than just a one-off help. "Of course," he said, setting his book down with a deliberate slowness. "We should keep the swelling down." He moved over to where I was sitting, positioning himself in front of me. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. He took my foot in his hands again, his touch now familiar, yet each time felt like stepping into new territory. "I appreciate this," I mumbled, feeling the heat in my cheeks. "I know it's kind of weird, but it's part of the routine now, I guess." Steve nodded, his hands working with a practiced ease. "It's okay, Jennifer. I'll get you back to normal soon." The massage continued in silence for a while, each of us lost in our thoughts. The awkwardness was there, undeniable, but so was a new kind of trust forming, a reliance on each other in this odd, unexpected way. It was a routine we hadn't planned, one that neither of us knew how to fully navigate, but one we were both silently agreeing to continue, for the sake of healing, and perhaps, for something more complex beneath the surface. Days had passed, and while I had hoped my ankle would be back to normal by now, it seemed the injury was more stubborn than anticipated. Sitting on the couch one evening, I couldn't ignore the persistent ache any longer. "Steve," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. "My ankle... it's still not getting better. Maybe we should see a doctor." Steve looked up from his laptop, concern creasing his brow. "I was hoping it would heal by now. Let me call your mom. Maybe she can take you to see someone." I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and apprehension. My mother had been staying at her sister's since the big fight, and I wasn't sure how she'd react to this news. Steve dialed her number, and after a brief conversation he turned to me. "She's on her way. She'll take you to the clinic." When my mom arrived, there was an immediate tension, but it was overshadowed by concern for my well-being. She hugged me, her eyes scanning my face for signs of pain. "Let's get you checked out," she said, her voice softer than I'd heard in weeks. The drive to the clinic was quiet, filled only with the hum of the car and the occasional worried glance from my mom. At the doctor's office we waited together, the silence between us filled with unsaid apologies, and the unspoken acknowledgement of our new, fragile family dynamic. When we finally saw the doctor, he examined my ankle, asking about how it happened. I explained the treadmill incident, and he nodded, prodding the area gently before ordering an X-ray. After the X-ray, we sat in the waiting room again, my mom holding my hand, a gesture that felt both comforting and foreign after so much distance between us. The doctor returned with the results. "No fracture, but you've got a pretty good sprain," he explained. "You'll need to rest it, ice it, keep it elevated, and I'll give you some exercises to do to strengthen it. We'll see how it goes in a couple of weeks." As we left the clinic, my mom, now less the angry woman from our last encounter and more the concerned parent, said, "We'll take care of you, Jennifer. This will be our focus for now." Steve was waiting at home, anxious for news. When we told him the diagnosis, he seemed genuinely relieved, offering to help with anything I needed. The ordeal had, in an odd way, brought us closer, at least for the moment. We were, all three of us, navigating through our own healing, both physical and emotional.